We were joking this morning. This is two of the quietest days of the year in American sports are the 2 days after the NBA All-Star game. There's no games. There's nothing going on. And I don't think it's coincidental. Jerry then owns the world. Jerry's very calculated. If you look at when he signed the big contracts, there's usually a lull in the sports world, and Jerry kind of owns it.
Listen, he likes his Dallas Cowboys being talked about. I don't know that this is a Jerry story, and as much as it's a Dak and Cowboy story, it still benefits him because, Dak got everything he wanted.
Everything. Everything.
Like, he got the guaranteed money, the no trade clause, the years. What am I missing?
If literally you were getting a divorce and it went for 3 years, and then at the end, he or she got everything, you'd be like, well, what's the point? Why make attorneys rich? It just should have settled.
Exactly.
Just settle. Like, you're not winning anything.
You didn't get anything you wanted.
Like you did. Dad got everything, which God love him. But why'd you wait 2 years if he's going to get everything?
I don't know.
All right, so here's the highest paid quarterbacks now in the NFL. And our television audience will see this, and I'll read it for our radio audience. Mahomes 1, Dak 2, Deshaun Watson 3, Russell Wilson 4, Aaron Rodgers 5, Jared Goff's tied for 5, Kirk Cousins 7, Carson Wentz 8, Matt Ryan 9, and Ryan Tannehill 10. So I said, okay, let's take those 10. And who do I think are the most talented? Now, the top of this and the bottom are pretty easy. And then it gets really tight. But here's who I would say. This is my opinion, if you rank them, of the 10 highest paid quarterbacks, just on talent, what I've seen. Number one's the easiest one, Patrick Mahomes. He's perfect. Great arm, mobile, good kid, coachable, appreciative, grinder. There's no downside. He's got the highest passer rating in NFL history. He's the youngest quarterback to lead his team to multiple Super Bowl appearances. This is a once-in-a-generation player. Kansas City will never, ever get a quarterback that good. That will never happen again. That is Brady to New England. It happens once. Don't try to duplicate it. They're never going to be a 6th-round player like Tom Brady. That is Mahomes is number one easily. Number 2, you can argue, I'd say Aaron Rodgers, who I think has the quickest release since Dan Marino. The ball comes out like a seed. It's incredible. He also led the NFL last year in virtually every statistical category. I may have issues sometimes. His personality's a little condescending or prickly. But in the end, again, you know how lucky Green Bay is to go from Favre to Rodgers? That's not the way it works. It's like when the Colts went Peyton Manning to Luck. That's not the way it works. Aaron's a remarkable talent. You cross your fingers. He's had a couple injuries, but he's got a good 4 or 5 years left. Number 3, and it's close, I'd say Russell Wilson. To me, he's just a winner. It's not as artistic. It's not as beautiful as Aaron Rodgers. But he's been in the league 9 years. He's been to the playoffs 8. First quarterback in history with a winning record in his first 9 seasons. He's the ultimate playmaker. Go Hawks. He's pushed back a little in recent years. But I think if you look, Aaron Rodgers has had much better offensive lines on average. Russell's been running for his life for 5 years. So you could make an argument Russell's 2 because he's had to overcome more, which is bad protection. But these 3, I don't have any argument with. And 4, I think it's hard to argue, too, would be Deshaun Watson. Listen, man, the guy led the NFL in passing yards. How? They traded DeAndre Hopkins. The offensive line was bad outside of left tackle. He's just a special player. I don't think he throws a football that's as pretty as Mahomes or as pretty as Aaron. I don't think, he went 4-12. He's not Russell Wilson in terms of, he just doesn't have losing seasons. But I think the first 4, this is really not really arguable. You're just trying to be obnoxious to argue. Now we go to 5. Now, I would put in Carson Wentz, and here's why. He had a bad year. But then I start looking at that nonsense in Philadelphia, and I think, okay, who would have won there? The other thing is Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, is one of the shrewdest guys in the NFL. He doesn't pay big money for anybody, and he went and got him. And that tells you Ballard's a pretty smart cookie. He doesn't want to pay big money. He's paying big money at quarterback now. By the way, Wentz was the first quarterback in league history that had over 20 touchdown passes, 7 or fewer interceptions his first 3 years in the league. That never been done. He is a raw talent. He had a bad year. It happened. Peyton Manning in year 4 had a bad year. It happens. Number 6, you're going to scoff at this, but we got to reboot how we think about Ryan Tannehill. Folks, not only is he a big, strong, mobile guy and had the second highest passer rating in the NFL since becoming a Titan, second to, like Mahomes, right? The guy led the NFL last year with 6 fourth quarter and overtime game-winning drives. He's been a really clutch winning quarterback, and he's led his team to the playoffs. So he wins, he's clutch, his passer rating is good. You got to take those Adam Gase years out. I was never a fan of Tannehill. Never a fan. But what doesn't he do? He wins, he's clutch, he's mobile, he's productive. By all accounts, he stays out of the news. I'd put him at 6. Now we get tight. And you're not going to like 7. I'd put Matt Ryan. Folks, he's been an MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl. I know he's not much fun to watch. I would argue that. And this is inches, not feet. But he has the most passing yards by any quarterback through the first decade of their career than anybody in NFL history. Matty Ice gives you the same numbers virtually every year. Atlanta's problem is their defense is horrific. He ain't the issue. So, now again, it gets close now. A lot of people prefer Dak. Dak's got 1 playoff win. Matty's been to a Super Bowl. And by the way, it's not like he's ever had, quote, a great coach. His coaches have always been fired. Dan Quinn got run. The other defensive guy he had before him got run. Mike Smith, I think. So it's not like he had Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator, but I would put Matt Ryan 7. 8, I would put Dak. Dependable, doesn't throw the prettiest football, but he's only got 1 playoff win. So he has not been good in the last 2 years against winning teams and playoff teams. He doesn't have a lot of playoff pelt. But I think he's a leader. I think he's liked. I think despite that injury, he's durable. I think in the last couple of years, he's productive. There's just certain things. He's kind of the anti-Baker Mayfield, where he'll say the right stuff. Doesn't matter what the controversy is, the loss, just put him at the podium. He'll just say the right thing. With Baker, if I own the Browns, I'd be crossing my fingers. So the other thing about Dak, he had the second highest passer rating by any quarterback in his first 5 years. So you generally get a very stable player at quarterback. Next is Jared Goff, who I had much higher years ago, but he's become a turnover machine. I don't think there's much to say here. I think he's going to regress because I don't think he has the coach now. So the offensive line won't be as good. The receivers won't be as good. The coach won't be as good. And I like Jaron more than everybody else. I always said he was Matt Ryan with a better deep ball. But over the last couple years, he has a turnover issue that you just can't deny. It's gotten bad, and the Rams moved off it. And number 10, not a shot, but I think Kirk Cousins has a very low ceiling. I think he's a nice guy. He's productive, but he feels like he always shrinks to me in big games, where I don't think Dak does. I don't think Goff shrinks in big games. I saw Goff outduel Patrick Mahomes in a big game. Goff, he won a playoff game this past year in Seattle, all banged up. So Goff, to me, doesn't shrink in big games. He has a turnover problem. Kirk Cousins, I feel like if I really, in a big game, need him to carry us a little, I don't think it's capable. So I showed you the 10 highest paid quarterbacks, the 10 most talented. And again, every Cowboy fan's going to argue on Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill. But at some point, I got an MVP with Ryan and a Super Bowl with Ryan. And Kirk Cousins' last 2 years, he's been great. I mean, I don't get it. I never got it. Not a fan of college, not a fan of Miami. But at some point, you got to be honest about it. Sometimes you have to take an argument and reboot it and go, okay, this is the data. Tannehill's data the last 2 years is great. He's great late. He starts every game. He's mobile. He gets into the playoffs. He beats good playoff teams. He stays out of the news. There you go. So again, ideally, you wouldn't want the 8th most talented quarterback to be the second highest paid. That's my takeaway. Ideally, you wouldn't want that. Dak's a little overpaid, but
that's also the market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Listen, the market is. This happens.
It is what it is. We freaked out with Jared Goff's contract.
Yeah, and I think everybody liked it for a year. It's funny about like Dak's. I think Dak's contract. I think for the first year, we're not going to talk much about it because the defense is going to get better. It's a bad division,
and he was going to get 37 this year anyway.
Right.
If they franchise tag.
So I think for the first year, I mean, if you told me this morning Dallas is going to go 9-7, that feels right. The defense is going to be better. They're going to take their draft this year. They're going to go mostly defense. The $15 million they save on him, they're going to go deep. They're
going to be better than they were last year. They had backup quarterbacks for half the season.
Yeah, and by the way, it was Mike McCarthy. Nobody bought in until about week 7. So they're going to be a better football. I don't think anybody will talk about his deal year 1. But I also, people say, well, they're getting a cap break in year 1. Yeah, but they're not a Super Bowl team. They're not. That $15 million doesn't change them as dramatically as it needs to be. I mean, if you told me right now the teams in the Super Bowl